After the last signal faded, the world entered a strange silence. It wasn't peace. It was the silence that comes when everyone holds their breath at once. For weeks, no one could sleep properly. The media tried to fill the silence with explanations. Scientists spoke on live shows. Politicians gave comforting speeches. But deep down, people could feel it. Something had changed. The stars didn't look the same anymore. They didn't shine like before. They looked like eyes. Governments continued to send signals back into space, polite and peaceful messages asking for understanding. "We come in peace," they said again and again. But there was never any reply, not even static. Then one early morning, everything changed. Astronomers in several observatories noticed strange lights above Earth's orbit. At first, they looked like bright stars moving slowly, but the paths were too perfect. They moved in formation, hundreds of glowing dots sliding silently across the sky. By noon, satellites had confirmed it. The lights were not stars. They were objects, giant objects. Some said they looked like floating cities, others like mirrored shields reflecting sunlight. Whatever they were real. And they were getting closer. People gathered in the streets at night pointing at the sky. Cameras and phones tried to capture what was happening, but the lights were too far to see clearly. All anyone could see was a faint golden glow, as if the heavens had opened a doorway. Within a day, the world's skies were full of those strange moving lights. They formed patterns, lines, and circles. It was as if someone was drawing symbols across the darkness of space. The next morning, the transmission came. Every screen on Earth, televisions, phones, billboards, flickered at the same time. A voice, not male or female, spoke in a language that wasn't human, but somehow everyone could understand the meaning. The translation appeared in white text across every display. "Cease your planetary pollution. You have one final cycle to comply." The message repeated 3 times, and then the screens went black. For several minutes, the world stood frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. Then chaos began. Some thought it was the end of the world. Others believed it was an elaborate hoax. But those who had seen the sky knew the truth. Something was up there, watching, waiting. In many places, people prayed. Some cried, some celebrated, thinking aliens had come to bring peace. But not everyone believed that peace was their goal. Inside military control rooms, screens showed the same images, bright, massive objects in low orbit. They didn't send attacks. They didn't move aggressively. They just hovered, silent and motionless, as if observing. It was like being watched by a teacher who didn't trust the students anymore. At the United Nations, leaders gathered in an emergency session. The mood was tense. Everyone spoke at once, blaming each other, arguing about how to respond. Some said humanity should surrender and agree to stop all nuclear projects. Others warned that doing so would show weakness and invite invasion. Amid the arguments, Dr. Park sat quietly at her desk, reviewing the data from the latest transmission. The structure of the message was almost identical to the first one, but there were extra codes hidden in the lower frequencies, signals that seemed to map out the planet's energy points. It was as if they had scanned the Earth completely. Every power plant, every nuclear facility, every area of high-energy output. They knew everything. When she presented her findings, many in the room didn't believe her. "You're saying they can see through the planet?" one official asked. Dr. Park simply nodded. "Not see," she said softly. "Measure. They understand us better than we understand ourselves." As the days passed, the lights in the sky became brighter. Airplanes reported interference. Satellites stopped responding. GPS systems failed for hours at a time. It was as if an invisible hand was gently turning off the switches of modern civilization. But no attack came. The waiting was the worst part. The uncertainty. Humanity had prepared for war for centuries, wars with each other. But how do you prepare for something that can control your sky without even firing a shot? In cities across the world, protests broke out. People demanded answers. Some shouted for peace, waving white flags at the sky. Others burned alien symbols drawn from the decoded message, calling them invaders. Meanwhile, a new rumor began to spread online. A story that the Galactic Empire had already made contact with certain governments in secret. That they were offering deals, protection, maybe even technology in exchange for control. No one could prove it, but the story grew bigger every day. At the same time, strange energy readings appeared in several parts of the world. Scientists found unusual radiation levels in the upper atmosphere, as if invisible waves were passing through the planet. They didn't harm anyone, but electronics reacted strangely. Lights flickered, compasses spun, machines froze. Then one night, the entire sky turned silver. It happened without warning. For about 5 minutes, the night sky glowed with a smooth, metallic light that rippled across the clouds. People everywhere stopped what they were doing and stared upward. There was no sound, no explosion, just a deep, distant hum like the sound of wind moving through glass, and then, as quickly as it came, the light vanished. The next morning, something unbelievable happened. All satellites around Earth stopped transmitting for exactly 7 minutes. Every country's communication system, military, commercial, civilian, went completely dark. When the systems came back online, no one could explain what had caused it. Engineers checked everything. There were no viruses, no physical damage. It was as if something had simply pressed pause on the planet's technology. The message was clear. The Galactic Empire was showing its power. They didn't need to destroy Earth. They could control it with a single command. Inside the United Nations Command Center, fear turned to urgency. Plans were drawn up under the name Project Phoenix, an emergency coalition between scientists and defense experts. The goal was simple but desperate: find a way to defend Earth, or at least communicate back in a language the Empire might respect. Dr. Park was chosen to lead the scientific team, not because she was the most powerful, but because she understood the message better than anyone. She didn't want war. She didn't want fear. She just wanted to talk, to understand. But not everyone agreed. Behind closed doors, powerful nations started their own secret projects. Hidden labs, hidden satellites, experimental weapons, all developed quietly out of sight of the public. Humanity was splitting in two, one half praying for peace, the other preparing for a fight, and above them all, the glowing objects still floated silently. One night, while working late, Dr. Park looked up at the observatory's night cameras. The images showed something new. One of the alien structures had moved lower, just beyond the atmosphere. She zoomed in. It was massive, almost the size of a city. Its surface looked smooth like metal, but it shimmered with faint blue light that pulsed in slow rhythm. It wasn't attacking. It was watching. Suddenly her computer beeped. A new message appeared on her screen, not from any known source, but directly from the observatory's receiver. The text was short and simple. Your leaders hide what they cannot understand. Her hands froze. She knew it was from them. The Galactic Empire wasn't just communicating with governments anymore. They were talking to her directly. She didn't know if she should tell anyone. If she did, people would panic even more. But if she stayed silent, she might lose the only chance to understand what the aliens truly wanted. That night, as she stood on the balcony overlooking the dark horizon, she saw the faint silver light above the clouds again. It pulsed once, like a heartbeat, then faded away. It was then she realized something strange. The messages weren't coming from a single source. They were everywhere. Around Earth, inside the atmosphere, maybe even within the very signals humans use daily. The sky wasn't empty anymore. It was full of silent watchers waiting for humanity's answer, and Earth had no idea what to say. As days turned into weeks, the tension grew unbearable. Every nation waited for a move that never came. Farmers saw strange lights in their fields at night. Fishermen reported glowing shapes in the ocean depths. The world was holding its breath, unsure if it was living through the beginning of peace, or the slow countdown to something much worse. Dr. Park looked up at the stars every night, wondering if anyone up there felt the same fear she did. Maybe the Galactic Empire wasn't made of monsters. Maybe they were just enforcing rules humans didn't understand. But the question that haunted her was simple. What happens when the deadline ends? Because deep down everyone knew. The Galactic Empire hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to decide, and time was already running out. Days turned into weeks, and the silence from the sky continued. The giant glowing shapes above Earth stayed perfectly still, like statues floating in the darkness. People had almost grown used to them, as if they were part of the sky now. But deep down, no one was truly calm. Governments kept pretending things were under control, but everyone could see the truth. Satellites still flickered off and on, some countries lost contact with their space stations, and strange energy readings kept showing up all over the planet, invisible waves moving through the air like quiet whispers. Then, one morning it happened, at exactly the same time across the world. The sky changed. In every country, people stopped and looked up. A huge shimmering field of light appeared around the planet, a faint glow almost like a second atmosphere. It moved slowly, spreading across the horizon. Scientists later called it an energy barrier, but in that moment no one had any idea what it was. Airplanes reported strange turbulence. Satellites stopped working completely. Television and internet signals vanished for several minutes. The world went dark, connected yet blind. When the screens came back on, everyone saw the same thing. A massive holographic image filled the sky above every major city. The same face, and not human, not alien in the way movies showed, but something made of light and motion. It didn't look alive, yet it looked aware. It had no mouth, no eyes, but its voice echoed directly inside people's minds. The voice said only a few words, slow and heavy. Earth has been warned. This is your final cycle. Surrender your nuclear arms or your species will be removed. No one moved. Children cried. Grown men froze. Birds stopped mid-flight, confused by the light. The image lasted exactly 60 seconds, then faded. The sky returned to normal, if you could call it normal anymore. The light barrier still glowed faintly, circling the planet like a silent crown. The message was clear. Humanity had one last chance. Within hours, every government on Earth called emergency meetings. The United Nations became the center of the world. Leaders from every country gathered in one place, their faces pale and tense. Outside the building, crowds filled the streets, demanding answers, crying, shouting, or praying. Inside, voices rose in anger. Some said the message was fake, that it was a trick maybe from another country trying to scare the world. Others knew better. They had seen too much, lost too many satellites, and witnessed the sky change before their eyes. One group wanted peace. They said humanity should surrender its weapons, show humility, and prove that Earth could be trusted. Another group refused, saying that giving up defenses would leave the planet helpless if the Galactic Empire decided to attack anyway. No one could agree. Dr. Park sat quietly in the corner of the room, listening. She had been brought back again to decode the smaller messages hidden inside the broadcast. She had discovered something chilling. Inside the voice pattern of the ultimatum, there were coordinates. Numbers that pointed not to random places, but to Earth's largest nuclear storage sites. The Galactic Empire knew exactly where everything was. When she told the Council, panic spread again. Some countries immediately tried to move their weapons underground. Others began shutting down nuclear plants, afraid of being targeted first. But it was already too late. The barrier around Earth began to pulse. Every few hours it glowed brighter, as if counting down. Scientists said it was reacting to human technology, to radiation, to power grids, to signals. It was as if the entire planet had been placed inside a giant cage, and the walls were watching every move. The public demanded answers. Television hosts spoke about the end of the human era. Social media exploded with theories. Some believed the aliens wanted peace. Others said they were preparing to cleanse the planet. People started to leave big cities, heading for mountains and remote villages, hoping to escape whatever was coming. Meanwhile, a small team of scientists and engineers started working on something new under the project name Phoenix. It was created in secret, hidden beneath a desert research base. The goal wasn't to build a weapon, at least not at first. It was to build understanding. They wanted to translate alien energy, to communicate in their frequency instead of human words. But time was short. Every reading showed that the barrier around Earth was getting stronger every day. If it reached full power, nothing could get in or out. Not light, not sound, not even oxygen if it continued to tighten. Dr. Park worked day and night, trying to understand the energy field's language. It wasn't random. It pulsed in patterns like a heartbeat. The more she studied it, the more she realized it wasn't just a weapon. It was a signal system. The barrier was talking to something far beyond the solar system. That meant the Galactic Empire wasn't here alone. When she told the world leaders, their expressions turned grim. If the Empire was communicating with something larger, That meant Earth was being judged by an entire network, a galactic council maybe, or a system of enforcement far beyond human imagination. The pressure grew unbearable. Some governments quietly began creating their own plans, secret bunkers, evacuation programs, even backup colonies on the moon. They didn't tell the public. They didn't want panic, but word leaked, as it always does. People began to realize the truth. The ones in power were preparing to survive, while the rest of humanity would be left behind. The streets filled with anger. Riots broke out in some cities. Others fell completely silent, people too afraid to even look at the sky. Then, something strange happened. A third signal appeared. But this one didn't come from the Galactic Empire. It came from within Earth's barrier itself. Scientists detected it first. A short, repeating message hidden inside the energy field's waves. It was faint but clear enough once decoded. It said they do not want peace. They want control. Resist and they will retreat. No one knew who sent it. Some said it was a human trick. Others believed it came from a faction inside the Empire. Maybe rebels or other civilizations that didn't agree with their rulers. Dr. Park wasn't sure what to believe. But she couldn't ignore the possibility that someone, or something, was trying to help humanity. Project Phoenix began to take a new direction. The scientists decided to send their own message into the barrier. They couldn't speak an alien language, but they could use energy. They began working on a pulse signal, a single beam of coded light that could send Earth's message beyond the barrier. It wasn't much, but it was something. As they worked, the countdown continued. The barrier's glow grew stronger. People could see it at night now. A faint silver ring around the planet visible even from the ground. It looked beautiful, almost magical, but everyone knew what it meant. The final day arrived. The Galactic Empire's voice returned, louder than before. It echoed in every device, every speaker, every corner of the world. The time for decision has ended. Prepare for judgment. The barrier flared with light. Satellites burned out instantly. The entire sky shimmered like liquid metal. People screamed and prayed, expecting the worst. But then nothing happened. The light stayed bright, then slowly dimmed. Dr. Park looked at her readings and realized something incredible. The pulse signal they had sent through Project Phoenix was working. It was creating interference inside the barrier. The alien network was trying to block it, but they couldn't completely stop it. Her team pushed harder, increasing the pulse's strength. For the first time, the Galactic Empire's message broke apart. The voice glitched, cracked, and vanished mid-sentence. The barrier flickered. Something was happening. Then, for a few brief seconds, a new image appeared in the sky. Not the Empire's cold hologram, but a different symbol entirely. A circle of light surrounded by smaller dots connected like a map. Beneath it, 3 simple words appeared across every screen. You are not alone. Then everything went dark again. People screamed, cried, and hugged each other, unsure if it meant hope or something worse. But Dr. Park smiled faintly for the first time in weeks. She didn't know who had sent that message. Maybe allies from somewhere far beyond, maybe rebels from within the Empire. But one thing was clear. Humanity was no longer just a target. Someone out there had heard their signal. The ultimatum had been given. The clock had run out. But the story wasn't over. Because now the fight wasn't just about survival. It was about truth. And the truth was, the Galactic Empire might not be the only power watching Earth. The stars that once felt so far away suddenly seemed closer than ever. And humanity, fragile but stubborn, stood beneath them, ready to face whatever came next. The message, "You are not alone," changed everything. For the first time since the Galactic Empire appeared, there was a small spark of hope. People around the world talked about it as if it was a miracle. Some believed it came from friendly aliens. Others said it was a natural glitch. But deep down, everyone wanted to believe that someone, or something, was trying to help humanity. Governments tried to hide the truth, but the message spread too fast. It was seen everywhere, on phones, televisions, even on car displays. Within hours, the entire world was talking about it. Inside the underground base where Project Phoenix was working, the team studied the signal carefully. It wasn't random. It had structure, rhythm, and patterns that looked like mathematical language. But something was different. It didn't match the style of the Galactic Empire's earlier messages. Dr. Park stared at the data for hours. She felt that the message was not only a warning but also a guide. Whoever sent it wanted Earth to understand something deeper. The more she studied it, the more she realized that the signal wasn't coming from outside the galaxy. It was coming from within the barrier surrounding Earth. That meant whoever sent the message was already here. The idea sent chills down her spine. The next morning, the Project Phoenix team started scanning the barrier more closely. They found small irregularities, tiny energy distortions scattered like dust inside the field. It was almost like the barrier wasn't solid. It was made of millions of signals woven together. And in those signals, they found patterns, messages, recordings, and even fragments of alien communication. After decoding a few of them, the truth began to unfold. The Galactic Empire wasn't what humanity thought it was. It wasn't a single species or a peaceful federation of worlds. It was a vast network, a collection of advanced civilizations ruled by one powerful force that controlled others through fear. They didn't protect planets. They used them. Their goal wasn't to bring peace or order. It was to control planets rich in resources, including those with rare types of energy that could power their dark matter gates. And Earth, it seemed, had something they wanted. Dr. Park listened to one of the decoded fragments. The voice was distorted but clear enough to understand. It spoke of harvest zones, compliance protocols, and removal of native species. Each line made her heart sink deeper. The Empire's warnings about planetary pollution and sovereignty violation were lies. They weren't angry about nuclear power. They were afraid it might damage their trade routes near Jupiter. In other words, Earth was not in danger because of what it had done. It was in danger because it was in the way. When Dr. Park revealed this to the world leaders, the room went completely silent. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, one official asked quietly, "Are you saying they plan to destroy us just to clear their path?" She nodded slowly. "Not destroy," she said. "Replace." The Empire wanted Earth's position in the solar system to build a new gate, a huge structure that could connect two sides of the galaxy. For them, humanity was just an obstacle. After that meeting, everything changed. The United Nations split into two secret groups. One group wanted to keep negotiating, hoping to buy time. The other wanted to resist. But resistance against such power felt hopeless. What could human technology do against forces that could shut down the entire planet's systems in seconds? Dr. Park, however, believed there was still a way. She noticed something strange in the Empire's transmissions, a rhythm that didn't match their usual communication patterns. It felt almost like a signal from within, like interference. After comparing it with the mysterious "You are not alone" message, she realized both had the same frequency source. Someone inside the Galactic Empire was helping them. Maybe a rebel faction. Maybe a scientist. Maybe someone who believed what the Empire was doing was wrong. Whoever they were, they had left clues inside the energy field, pieces of truth hidden in plain sight. Following those clues, Dr. Park and her team found a deeper layer of data inside the barrier. It was encrypted, but it contained maps, and not of Earth but of space. Paths, coordinates, and what looked like trade routes. They realized the dark matter gate near Jupiter wasn't just a theory. It was real, already under construction in a hidden dimension. The more they uncovered, the clearer the picture became. The Galactic Empire wasn't preparing for war with Earth. They were preparing a massive operation. Earth's destruction wasn't a punishment. It was logistics. Dr. Park couldn't sleep that night. She sat alone in the control room, looking at the glowing patterns on the screen. The thought that humanity was being judged not for its actions, but for its location broke her heart. For the first time, she felt anger stronger than fear. She made a decision. If the Galactic Empire wanted to use Earth's silence as acceptance, then humanity needed to speak back, loudly. The next morning, she gathered her team and explained her plan. They would use the same energy frequency inside the barrier to send a counter-message, not just a signal, but a broadcast that would reveal the Empire's secrets to the entire galactic network. If they could expose the truth, maybe other civilizations under the Empire's rule would turn against them. It was a dangerous idea. If the Empire detected the signal, they might attack instantly, but the team agreed. Humanity had nothing left to lose. Work began immediately, using all remaining satellites and energy reactors. Project Phoenix built a device they called the Mirror. Its purpose was to reflect the alien frequency back into space, magnified by Earth's own magnetic field. As they prepared, strange events started happening around the world. People reported seeing flickering lights in the sky that looked different from the Empire's crafts, smaller, faster, and moving erratically. Some scientists believed they were probes sent by the same unknown faction that had warned Earth. Dr. Park hoped that was true. She needed help, and maybe help was already on the way. Meanwhile, in secret, certain world leaders began to panic. A few saw the Empire's control as inevitable and started private talks to surrender. They hoped that by cooperating they could save themselves even if the rest of humanity was lost. Dr. Park learned about these secret meetings through intercepted transmissions. It broke her heart to realize that humanity's greatest threat wasn't only in the sky, it was also among themselves. Still, she didn't stop. The Mirror was finally ready. It stood deep underground, powered by massive fusion cores. When activated, it would send a wave strong enough to travel beyond the solar system. A wave filled with the truth about the Empire's plans. But as the final hour approached, Earth's skies began to change again. The barrier around the planet thickened, glowing brighter than ever before. The Empire had sensed something. New symbols appeared across the sky, warnings written in light. The voice returned, cold and emotionless. Defiance detected. Termination will begin. Dr. Park's team worked faster, fingers shaking over the controls. The energy reading spiked dangerously high. Machines rattled, lights flickered, alarms screamed. Then, just before activating the Mirror, something unexpected happened. A new signal entered the network. Not from Earth, not from the Empire. It came from beyond Jupiter. The voice was different this time, calm, warm, almost human. It said, "Do not fear. The gate will fall." And then, everything went dark. The barrier flickered again, this time violently. The lights in the sky began to move, shifting in confusion. The Empire's structures above Earth started losing formation, as if something powerful was interfering with their control. Dr. Park stared at the monitors in disbelief. "It's them," she whispered. "Whoever sent the message before, and they're fighting back." She pressed the final command. The Mirror activated, sending a pulse of light straight through the barrier and into the stars. The Earth shook, power lines burned, but the signal was sent. The truth was out there now, in the same cosmic language the Empire used. For the first time, the Galactic Empire's secrets were exposed to the galaxy. Dr. Park didn't know what would happen next. Maybe the Empire would retaliate. Maybe other civilizations would rise up. Maybe Earth would be destroyed. But one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer silent. As she looked up at the trembling sky, she whispered, "If they wanted obedience, they chose the wrong planet." The barrier pulsed one last time, then began to fade. The world below waited, hearts frozen, watching the heavens for the Empire's next move. The truth had been spoken, and now the galaxy would have to decide what to do with it. The days following the activation of the Mirror were tense. For the first time, the Galactic Empire seemed unsettled. Their massive ships in orbit shifted, their glowing symbols flickered, and their voice transmissions stuttered. It was small, almost imperceptible, but everyone monitoring the skies could feel it, a crack in their power. Earth's people still lived under fear. The barrier around the planet hadn't disappeared entirely. It pulsed faintly, a constant reminder that the Empire was still watching. Satellites slowly returned to operation, though many remained offline. Humanity had only moments to act before the Empire could re-establish control. Inside the Phoenix underground base, Dr. Park and her team were exhausted but focused. The Mirror had revealed the Empire's vulnerabilities. The energy networks powering the barrier, the points where their orbital structures could be disrupted, and the rhythm of their signals. But revealing the truth wasn't enough. Humanity needed to defend itself. The plan was audacious. A secret weapon, never tested in full scale, had been developed over weeks in complete isolation. It was called the Ether Pulse, a fusion-based energy cannon capable of emitting a focused beam designed to disrupt the Empire's dark matter gate and their orbital control structures. It wasn't a weapon of destruction against the aliens themselves. It was a tool to collapse their infrastructure and break their hold over Earth. But using it was dangerous. The energy required could destabilize entire regions of the planet. Misfire could wipe out cities below. The team argued constantly over the risks. In the end, Dr. Park made the decision. They had no choice. Humanity couldn't wait any longer. The day of the operation arrived. The sun rose pale and orange, casting long shadows over a world that had grown silent. Streets were empty. People stayed inside, staring at the sky, waiting. Communication channels were quiet except for emergency broadcasts encouraging calm. Fear hung in the air like a heavy fog. In the underground facility, the pulse was powered up. Massive coils hummed, fusion cores glowed, and the device seemed alive, breathing energy like a heart. Engineers checked every reading multiple times. The slightest miscalculation could destroy the base, the surrounding city, or worse, the entire planet. Dr. Park activated the final calibration. A holographic display showed the orbital positions of the Empire's ships. The data indicated one critical weak point. A section of the barrier's energy network connected directly to the dark matter gate near Jupiter. The pulse had to hit that precise point to work. Outside, the alien ships above Earth began to react. They shifted in formation, their light flickering almost like a warning. For the first time, their presence felt alive, aware of what humanity was about to do. Dr. Park's voice broke the tense silence. "We have one chance. Align carefully. Follow the sequence. Remember, this isn't to destroy life. This is to defend it. Humanity's survival depends on it." The engineers nodded, silent, focused. Their hands flew across controls, adjusting frequencies, monitoring energy flows, and keeping the ether pulse stable. Every second felt like an hour. Then, at the final countdown, Dr. Park pressed the activation key. The ground trembled. The base shook violently as the pulse began to charge. Light flashed from the energy coils, spreading through the facility like liquid metal. The air hummed with a high, almost musical tone. Engineers gritted their teeth against the vibration, their hearts pounding. The pulse fired. A beam of bright blue energy shot upward, cutting through the atmosphere and striking the Empire's orbital network. The beam was focused, precise and devastating, not to harm the aliens but to collapse the points that connected their ships to the barrier. Above, the Empire's structures shuddered. The glowing ships flickered violently, some spinning out of control. The energy barrier around Earth wavered and shrank. For the first time in weeks, the sky was open. Stars shone clearly again. People all over the world noticed the difference. An eerie calm, a quiet light returning to the heavens, but the Empire was not defeated. A holographic voice, distorted and furious, echoed across Earth's communication networks. "Human defiance is unacceptable. Response will be total." The ships began firing beams of energy toward Earth, but the pulse had altered the barrier's structure. The beams hit the disrupted energy field and dissipated harmlessly. Humanity had learned to fight the Empire's power using their own frequencies. For the first time, fear mixed with hope. Dr. Park monitored the pulse carefully. The energy network of the Empire's ships was breaking apart slowly. Structures began to collide, creating small explosions in orbit that sent shards and debris tumbling into space. Sensors detected that the dark matter gate near Jupiter was destabilizing. The Empire's hold was slipping. Then, unexpectedly, another signal entered the network. It was the same mysterious faction that had warned humanity before. The voice said simply, "Now, strike with courage." It was a confirmation that Earth wasn't alone. The unknown allies, maybe rebels, maybe civilizations under the Empire's rule, were assisting. The Galactic Empire was not invincible. The ether pulse continued to fire in carefully timed bursts. Each burst disrupted more of the orbital network. The ships lost cohesion, spinning out of formation, some drifting silently into space. For the first time, humanity had a tangible advantage. Dr. Park and her team were exhausted, sweat dripping from their faces, but they kept working. Outside, the sky was alive with streaks of energy, explosions of light, and the humming resonance of the pulse. The world below watched in awe and terror. Some cities celebrated, some trembled, some simply stared at the sky in disbelief. Then the final strike. The pulse focused all remaining energy on the weak point of the dark matter gate near Jupiter. A shockwave of light shot through the solar system, invisible to the human eye but detectable by instruments worldwide. The gate collapsed in a silent, invisible ripple. The Empire's access point was destroyed. The orbital ships above Earth flickered violently one last time before retreating. They disappeared slowly, slipping beyond detectable range. For the first time, the Empire was gone, at least for now. Earth's sky cleared. Stars shone brilliantly and the silence returned. But it was different this time. Not oppressive, not fearful, but calm and alive. Humanity had survived. Dr. Park slumped in her chair, exhaustion overwhelming her. Around her, engineers and scientists cheered quietly, though their voices trembled with relief and disbelief. They had faced a force beyond comprehension and held their ground. Outside the base, people began to emerge cautiously. Cities were scarred, power grids damaged, but the world had endured. Families reunited. Children laughed, unsure why, but grateful that the sky was quiet again. For Dr. Park, the moment was bittersweet. They had survived, yes, but the Galactic Empire still existed. They had lost this battle, but they could return. Earth had been saved, but the galaxy had watched, and now, humanity's survival depended not only on courage, but on wisdom and unity. In the quiet aftermath, Dr. Park recorded a message for the world. Today we survived. Not because we are the strongest, but because we refuse to be silent. We learned that courage, science, and unity can protect life even against the impossible. But this is only the beginning. The universe is watching. We must prepare not with fear, but with hope and knowledge. Today, humanity learned that survival is our oldest language. And in the night sky, for the first time in weeks, the stars shone without interference. The Empire had retreated, but the universe had witnessed humanity's defiance. For now, Earth was free, but everyone knew the story was far from over. The skies above Earth had finally cleared. For the first time in months, people could look up and see stars without a pulsing barrier or glowing ships overhead. It was a quiet night, but the calm felt fragile, as if the world was holding its breath. Humanity had survived. Against impossible odds, against a force beyond comprehension, the Galactic Empire had been forced to retreat. But survival came at a cost. Cities had been damaged during the ether pulse activation. Power grids were unstable. Communications were patchy. The air was still thick in places with strange energy residues from the Empire's barrier. People walked through streets filled with debris, their faces pale and weary. Families hugged each other tightly, knowing how close they had come to losing everything. Every home, every life, carried the weight of weeks filled with fear, uncertainty, and desperate hope. Dr. Park moved quietly through the streets of a major city, observing the aftermath. She had spent weeks underground working on the mirror and the pulse. Now, seeing the faces of ordinary people, she felt the gravity of what humanity had endured. It wasn't the fear of the Empire alone that had changed humanity. It was the way people had come together, strangers helping strangers, scientists and engineers risking everything, and entire nations working toward a single, fragile goal: survival. The world had learned a new truth about itself. People were capable of extraordinary courage when faced with the impossible. But they had also seen the cracks. Governments that kept secrets, leaders willing to betray the many for the few, and humanity's own fear-driven divisions. Survival had demanded unity, but unity had not come easily. In the global command centers, leaders and scientists worked tirelessly to repair infrastructure. Communications were restored gradually. Power was brought back to cities in stages. Satellites were reactivated, and slowly, the world could once again see itself from above. Dr. Park returned to Project Phoenix's underground base. The mirror still stood, now silent and dim, but its work had changed the course of history. The ether pulse had done more than break the Empire's hold. It had proven that humans could face forces far beyond their understanding and endure. She walked through the control room, touching the worn consoles, remembering the weeks of tension, the moments when she had thought failure was inevitable. She had seen colleagues cry from exhaustion, engineers argue fiercely over the smallest adjustments, and everyone pushed past fear because the world depended on them. And now, the quiet allowed her to reflect. The Empire had not been defeated in the way humanity imagined. They had retreated, but they had not vanished. Their networks, their structures, and their reach remained vast. They had seen Earth's defiance. They had seen humans act not out of power but out of courage. And that had changed something. Somewhere beyond the solar system, other civilizations had witnessed the truth. The pulse of humanity had broadcast across the stars. The Galactic network, the unseen watchers that the Empire feared, had received the signal. Earth had announced its presence not through fear, not through surrender, but through defiance and unity. Dr. Park knew the future was uncertain. The Empire could return. They could try again. But humanity had learned an essential lesson. Survival was not just about hiding or obeying. It was about understanding, acting together, and making choices even when the outcome was unknown. Outside, the first stars of evening appeared. Families gathered on rooftops and balconies, looking at the sky in silence. Children pointed excitedly, asking questions that adults could only answer with wonder. For a brief moment, fear had been replaced by curiosity, by the simple joy of being alive under a quiet night sky. Yet even in the relief, there was reflection. Governments convened global councils to discuss the events and plan for the future. Agreements were made to share technology, to prepare defenses, and to establish communication protocols that could reach beyond Earth's atmosphere without provoking aggression. Humanity had survived, but it had also been shown its own fragility. Lessons had been learned the hardest way, through fear, through confrontation, through risking everything. Dr. Park walked outside the base, feeling the cool night air. She noticed small lights flickering on in nearby buildings as people returned to their homes, as life slowly began to resume. She thought about the unknown allies who had helped them, sending warnings and guidance that had changed the outcome. Who were they? Were they watching still? Could humanity trust them fully? Questions without answers, yet they offered hope. The world's media had begun sharing stories not of destruction, but of courage. Ordinary citizens who had helped in small ways were celebrated. Engineers who had worked nights without rest were honored. Children who had stayed brave in shelters were remembered. And across every continent, people felt a connection. The knowledge that humanity had survived as one, even while divided by language, borders, and beliefs. Dr. Park thought about the cost. Millions had been affected by the events, directly and indirectly. Cities damaged, lives changed, routines broken. She understood that survival had come not without sacrifice. Humanity had faced a force beyond comprehension, and yet it had survived not through sheer power, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. In quiet moments, she returned to the memory of the Galactic Empire's voice, their warning, their ultimatum. Those words would never leave her. Prepare for judgment. Humanity had survived that judgment, but the galaxy had watched, and the lessons would remain. Earth had been observed, measured, and tested. And now Earth had responded. Across the world, people began rebuilding. Communities that had grown close in fear remained connected. Governments pledged transparency in technology, in energy projects, and in global communication. The story of humanity's defiance became a shared story, not just of victory, but of understanding the fragility and the resilience of life on Earth. Dr. Park returned to the observatory one evening, staring at the sky. Stars shone clearly as they had for millennia, but now they felt different. They felt alive, almost as if the universe itself had witnessed something remarkable. Humanity had survived against impossible odds, and for the first time, she allowed herself to hope. She whispered quietly, not to anyone but to herself. They came to end us, but we reminded them, survival is our oldest language. In the months that followed, Earth slowly healed. Infrastructure was rebuilt. Communities that had suffered loss leaned on one another. Scientists continued to study the remnants of the barrier, the pulse, and the signals, preparing for the possibility that the Empire might return, or that other unknown forces might watch from afar. Life continued, as it always does, but humanity had changed. Fear had taught endurance, knowledge had taught vigilance, and courage had taught hope. The night sky, once a place of fear, became a symbol of connection. Humanity knew that while the Empire had left for now, the galaxy was not silent. Observers waited, and Earth, stronger now, had a voice that would never again be silent. Dr. Park looked at the horizon, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. The Galactic Empire had tested them. Humanity had survived, and though the stars were quiet tonight, she knew the story was not over. But Earth was ready, and in that quiet night, among the repaired cities, the recovered families, and the calm skies, humanity took its first true breath of freedom. For now, Earth was alive, and hope burned brighter than any star.